Hello everyone, and welcome to another video here on the Cycling Dane Extra channel. If you're listening on the Cycling Dane podcast, today we are doing, our first one-day preview of the year, and this is of Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and the 80th edition, which is quite special. And here to discuss all things Omloop Het Nieuwsblad is Patrick Blake of Outdo Cycling. And I mean, Patrick, are you one of the cycling purists where this is the start of the season, or is it the GP Marseille, or is it Tour Down Under?
Oh, it's so hard. I feel like for me it changes year on year. It just depends what kind of mood I'm in. For me, I think it starts at the Tour Down Under. There's already been a lot of bike racing going on where you'd have to have really had your head in the sand to have not noticed all the results going on. So I feel like technically the cycling season has started, but I feel like this is almost like a ceremonious start to the season. I think that's how people see it, and I can understand that. The Cobble Classics are an important part of the season. They really hold their own position as this kind of set of races that are really important, and Omloop and Kuurne Brussel Kuurne are an important gateway into this part of the season. But I love this part of the season. I love Omloop and Kuurne, Stradé, and then the day after that is Paris, and then the day after that is Tirreno Adriatico, and I think like that is my favourite time of the year. But is this the start of the season? I don't know. For me, it isn't.
I think you put it quite eloquently. It's the start of the classic season, we'll go that way, and then no races get disrespected either. But this race, so extraordinary. Last year we saw Jan Tratnik win it, Wout van Aert even getting third place. He's won it in the past, as you told me about. We all think about the Jens Stannard, where he bullied 4 quick-step riders. That was a fantastic edition. Patrick, what does the route look like for the 2025 edition of the race?
Well, the 80th edition of the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad takes us from Ghent to Ninove, and we take in a lot of the kind of classic climbs. We've got the Leiberg, the Valkenberg, the Wolvenberg, the Molenberg, etc., etc. But obviously the main kind of course of the day is the dual header of the Mur, followed very swiftly afterwards by the Bosberg. That is where we saw Wout van Aert in 2022 making his winning move on the Bosberg. It was a pretty brutal attack. It's a really interesting climb in that it goes from tarmac just onto this wall of straight cobbles, and then it just finishes like at the top, and then it's like a very slight downhill towards the finish line. And yeah, pretty much we kind of know what it's like. You know, the Mur is the main course of the day just because of how steep it is, of how narrow it is. We've seen it plenty of times before. You will have seen it in the Renew Tour if you're an avid watcher of that. And it's also worth noting that the weather on Saturday is set to be very fine. It's going to be something, I feel like a weatherman right now. It's going to be anywhere between sort of 5 degrees to 7 degrees with a 5 to 7 mile an hour northerly wind. So it's definitely going to be a day probably for some knee warmers and arm warmers, maybe a slightly thicker base layer, and maybe you might see some people doffing some gloves. But that's it for my weather forecast section and the route preview. So shall we go and jump into who the main competitors are for this race?
Who do you want to start with? Because sometimes, well, not all the time, but sometimes we start with the defending champion or the defending champion's team. Obviously, Jan Tratnik, he's moved to Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, so we might as well start with Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. Sorry, Visma Lease A Bike.
Well, yeah, of course. Tratnik is returning. He's got the number 1 on his back. He's backed up by Roger Adlier, Jonas Koch, Olivier Lascano. Obviously, he's got big sights on the Ronde van Vlaanderen. He wants to be the first Spanish winner of that. So that's pretty lofty ambitions, but I think if anybody's going to do it, it's probably going to be him. Jordi Meijers, obviously the sprinter in form at the moment, looked very, very good at the Volta ao Algarve. He probably wouldn't have won that first sprint if he would have gone on the right side of the barriers. And then you got Mick and Tim van Deken, who are also some very good mod domestiques to have in there, I expect. I think it will be Tratnik and Lascano leading the team, Scott. Neither of them have looked, in my opinion, like there hasn't been any kind of standout performances from either of them this year. So I'm not really too sure what to make of their chances, whether they might try and play it a bit more defensive to try and keep Meijers in the game as best they can and try and win a reduced sprint, kind of a bit like Ballerini from 2021, I think it was Ballerini when he won it. So maybe they might be trying to play a bit more of a defensive game. What do you reckon?
I mean, this is going to be the first test of the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe new riders. We talked about it all through the transfer talks last year. They were building this classics team. Jan Tratnik, new boy. The Van Dijk twins, both new as well, and Oilers Kano. So that's 4 riders of that team. So 4 out of 7 are completely new. Obviously, they will have ridden winter camps, I think, Red Bull or Mallorca or something. But this is going to be the first big test. And is this going to be where they're winning it? Who knows? But yeah, Jan Tratnik. Last year, Jan Tratnik won it from the break with Niels Pollitt with him. But I think he was benefiting of the fact of having such a strong team like Wout van Aert behind kind of marking moves. He's not really going to have that luxury this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. He doesn't quite have the team strength, and maybe if they get somebody like Roger Adlier, perhaps we're overlooking a little bit. He was very good at the end of last year and definitely took a bit of a step up. And I think they'll be going with a strategy of trying getting the moves with Tratnik, Lascano, and Adlier, and then the rest of the team might be behind in Group 2 or Group 3 or whatever it will be, depending on the race situation, protecting Meus, keeping them in there for a sprint, because at the end of the day, yes, Tratnik won ahead of Pollitt last year, but third place was Wout from a pretty reasonably sized group. So you do end up with this sprint for minor placings usually in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, especially on days which this is going to be like, which is going to be pretty decent weather. If it's obviously worse conditions and it's wet, you see a more attritional race, but finer weather tends to favour a little bit more of a conservative race style. So I think they're just going to be playing the moves, try and get 3 guys in a front split and just keep pinging riders off the front or going with moves and seeing what happens.
Well, we might well turn our attention towards, we've got quite a lot of teams here when you think about it. We won't cover all of them. We'll throw some of them in the outsiders category. Sorry, Jasper Philipsen. And Arne De Lee actually as well. Okay, Arne De Lee did win in the Tour de la Province. Jasper Philipsen looked like he was fairly good in the UAE Tour, just didn't come away with a win, didn't beat Janta Milan or Tim Merlier, but we know he's a very good RD sprinter. As we know, Paris-Roubaix, he's been very good there, finishing on the podium. But Team Visma Lease A Bike, Wout van Aert, Eduardo Fini, Thies Benoot, Victor Kampenaerts, the new boy, Per Strandhagenes, Matteo Jurgensen as well, the man who won the Dwarsdorf Flandering Classic that Wout van Aert crashed out of. 2022 winner, as you told me before we started. Isn't this like Wout needs to do something? In Classica High-End, he was on working duties for his teammate. I think he realized he didn't have the legs and then the plan switched. It didn't come away with a win there. So yeah, what do you think about Wout's chances? And also just Wout this season, because this is kind of like last year we were like, wow, 3rd place, and then he wins Kern. We were ready to see Wout top form, and then yeah, Dwarsdorf Flandern destroyed all the hopes of every cycling fan for mythical Paris-Roubaix and Tour of Flanders.
I think that Wout has a decent chance. He's obviously been a bit unfortunate in that, you know, some key riders in his team have crashed out recently and had some, you know, kind of bad injuries, like say like Nicholas Behrens, for example, is one of those. And also Dylan Van Baarle isn't here either, who obviously has also won this race. But it is still a pretty strong squad. Obviously, there's 6 people in there at the moment. They can field 7, so they will obviously add somebody, I guess. I don't even think Julian Vermote is available either. Like, Visma Lease A Bike's been kind of plagued a little bit already with some bad luck crashes-wise. But I think they'll be looking towards Wout and Jorgensen to really head up the team and make the moves. And I think it is a team designed around that. I don't see like a maze sort of style, somebody who's there, like if they brought Coy here, for example, although he's been ill. But the point stands that they don't really have a sprinter who's going to be sat back waiting for the race to come to them. They're going to have to go out there and really make this race. And I think with the likes of Benoot, Hageners and Kampenaerts, they've really got the ability to do that. So I think you're going to see a pretty aggressive Visma Lease A Bike with Wout and Jorgensen trying to make this race as attritional as possible. Probably in that like before the Mur and the Bosberg. I think that you're going to see it in that sort of 80 kilometers to go. Probably going to try and make a move there. And I think that Wout, how's he been looking? I mean, he was all right in Algarve. He did put in a decent TT on the last day. I think I'd have more confidence if he did better on the Alto de Foyer on stage 2. I think a Wout in better form would have finished higher up in that stage. And like you said with the Classica High-End, he was the protected rider, but then like you say, he switched to work for Ben Tulloch because he was pretty gassed. And like for me, that doesn't bode too well if Wout is in a Classica Heian flagging with, 30 kilometers to go. I know it's a hillier parkour, but still that doesn't give me loads of confidence in Wout. But at the same time, we've done lots of race previews where we've sort of written Wout off because of his last race result probably hasn't been as good as we expect, and then he goes and does really well. So I'm unwilling to write Wout van Aert off.
Whatever happens this year, this Omloop, do you think are we going to see the best Wout in this classic season? He's even doing Amstel Gold this year as well.
Yeah, possibly. You could almost say that the fact that he's not in flying form already, like in Classica Heian, indicates that he's perhaps aiming to peak a little bit later. So, for example, last year he was really good in Omloop and Kerner, but generally the kind of rule goes where the person who wins Omloop isn't in good enough form by the time that Flanders and Roubaix come around. It's like they peak too early. So actually, in a way, it might be better for Wout and his bigger goals to lose Omloop Het Nieuwsblad in a very strange reverse psychology sort of way. I don't know. Maybe there's some weight behind that, maybe there isn't, but I would say that Wout's still got a decent shot. He's probably, on paper, one of the strongest riders in this race because there's no Van der Poel and there's no Pogacar here, there's no Pedersen. In theory, Wout is the strongest rider. We'll just have to wait and see whether that manifests.
Think I'm gonna refrain from putting Binyam Girmay in the favorite section because, as we found out in our pre-research, whatever, before the preview, he was actually 55th last year. So don't worry, we will see Binny again in a preview, but I'm not gonna put the pressure on his shoulders for this one. One man that we are gonna put the pressure on is Tom Pidcock, because this man. Okay, he won Ayula Tour. He won a stage in the Vuelta a Andalucía and finished on the podium. And we do know he has a good record in the one-day races. I think he's finished on the podium in Köln-Brussels-Köln. He's won Strada, obviously. He's won Amstel Gold. And Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he finished on the podium as well. So, yeah, Tom Pidcock, first of all, what on earth is he doing? Because the schedule that we've gone for in a different video, he's only doing Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and literally no other classics in terms of cobblestone riding. He goes on to the hillier ones, so it's very confusing.
Yeah, it is really confusing, isn't it? It's just Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, no Kerner-Brussels-Kerner, no E3, Dwaalsdorf, Vlaanderen, Le Samin, Roubaix, or Flanders or anything. It's quite odd that you see a rider just do Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and then just tap out, because then his next race is going to be Strade Bianche and then Tirreno Adriatico. So maybe he's just got more ambition for Strade Bianche, and is Omloop just almost, a bit like Pogacar is mentioned in an interview, is it almost like a switching of the engine, so to say, where you're switching from this stage racing style of race to being like a one-day racer, and perhaps Pidcock needs that one race just to kind of get him a mentality of fighting for position into kind of short, narrow lanes and those really short, repeated, explosive efforts. Maybe he's just, dare I even say, he's using Omloop as a training sort of thing. I don't really know. Pidcock has never really lived up to the hype of being a cobblestone rider. For years, people have said that he could be, but he's just never manifested into this cobbled rider that people have expected him to be able to form into. So I'm not really sure what's going on with Pidcock. I'm not sure why he's only just doing Omloop. It's very weird to me why this is the case, but he's been successful so far this year. I think the transition to Q36.5 has been a relatively smooth one, and one which has been pretty fruitful so far. Whether that will continue into a result at Omloop, I'm not too sure. I think a top 10 is possible, if it came down to a sprint, or if he managed to make it into some moves, yeah, for sure, but it's such a strange one where I don't think he's going to be winning this race. But I could be proven wrong. He's obviously had a really rejuvenated season, I think, so far. So maybe he could do well, but I'm not counting my chickens.
Would you believe it? His first Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, he finished 55th, just like Benny did last year. What is it with this 55th? And to keep the fives alive, in 2023, he finished fifth, Tom Pidcock, in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. And then obviously we spoke about the third place in Kern-Brussels-Kern. And last year he was eighth as well in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. So, I mean, your 10th place, it works out. So we'll see maybe this Pidcock in this new iteration potentially can do something here more with the new team. Yeah, there's one team that we haven't spoken about, the most winning team of last year, the most dominant team, the ones who came second last year, UAE Team Emirates, XRG. I mean, Patrick, what do you expect of them and who are they bringing?
I think I'm expecting pretty big things from UAE in this race. They've never, outside of, okay, what I'm about to say is going to sound really stupid. I was going to say they're not really like a cobblestone team, but then I realised that Pollitt finished on the podium of Flanders last year and Pogacar's won Flanders, but you know what I mean? They're a team which hasn't necessarily been associated with strong cobblestone performances, but this is a team which has really got some legs behind it. Although it's not a fully confirmed squad because they've currently got 8 riders there, but I'll mention all of them. So Morgado, obviously, man in form at the moment. Nils Pollitt, second place last year. Baroncini, Mikkel Bjerg, Loen Hederhots, new signing Jonathan Narvaez, who's obviously had a fantastic year so far after winning the Tour Down Under. Florian Vermeersch and Tim Wellens, who was also looking very good in the Ruta del Sol stroke Vuelta Andalusia. I think it's a really strong squad. I hope that Morgado gets in here, because I think that he's a man on fire. But he's obviously looking in fantastic form. He was good in Algarve. Narvaez is in good form. Wellens is looking good. And those are the 3 which I'm really looking to. I think that likely Hederhots, Vermeersch, and Bjerg, Baroncini, Pollitt, I think those are more the domestiques. I think that Narvaez and Wellens and Morgado have got some real form at the moment, especially I'd say Narvaez and Morgado. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do. And it's almost spooky to think that this is a team without Tadej Pogacar as their real spearhead. Like, this isn't even a team at full capacity. So when it comes around to Flanders, oh, holy moly, this is going to be like the Visma Lease A Bike of the last 2 years, and they've kind of formed it a bit almost out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's true. It's a very, very strong team. It's almost like, who's the leader here? Is it still Nils Pollitt, or is it just the road decides?
I think there isn't really a leader either. I think that it's Morgado. I think it's just like a bit of an everyman for himself, because I think that Wellens could do well, Morgado, Narvaez, and Pollitt as well. And it's just going to be a bit of a numbers game, a bit like a lot of the other teams, a bit like a quick step back in the day, actually, throwing it back a decade.
But we won't be talking about them.
That's true. But I think that they're just going to try and get a numbers game going and then just roll attacks one after another. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do, because they've got such a dynamic squad, and I think they could do I honestly think they've got some of the favourites to win this race.
Oh my goodness, could you see them get up the road, and then they are the new quick step in here, and then one Brit does an Ian Stannard, and that could be Ben Turner, Josh Tarling, whoever. Yeah, Ineos Grenadiers, strong team as well, but I think we're in the outsiders category right now. Yeah, outsiders, Patrick, Ineos Grenadiers, I would put them in there. I would even put EF Education Easy Post as well. They've got Kaspersky and former, no winner of this race, but Tour of Flanders, Mikkel Veldgren. I think he is a former winner, if I don't mistake, in 2018, where he also won Amstel Gold. So that could be an interesting team. Dylan turns for Cofidis. Obviously, we have that battle for the relegation spots going on as well. Astana have, as you mentioned earlier, a former winner, Ballerini, Bettiol as well. Yeah, Patrick, outsiders. Who are you kind of looking towards?
I know we were kind of disregarding Sudak Quickstep, but they are bringing Paul Magnier here, and he has been.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
He has been.
He's very young, though.
Yeah, I just don't think that really matters in this day and age anymore, though. He's just sensational, isn't he? He showed how good he was on punchy climbs in Etoile de Bessèges on that stage 1. He's a fast sprinter, and I think that he's perhaps might suffer from being able to do a bit of both, where I think he'll try and follow moves and consequently blow up with sort of a lack of experience. So I think it might be up to, he's going to need that experience of guys like Lampard to almost give him a bit of a level head and be like, no, we're going to try and we're going to sit back in this move, and rather than you trying to follow X, Y, Z or whoever, just like rein it back. But I think Magnier is really exciting for this race. I want to reiterate, I think, Ben Turner and Tarling, I think that's a really exciting duo, especially, and Watson in there as well. Going in from Ineos Grenadiers, looking forward to seeing what they can do from this race. I would also say, Vatsek from Lidl Trek has been looking very good this year too. Schoins was okay in Tour de la Provence, not outstanding, but still pretty decent. And maybe even some riders from Israel Premier Tech as well. Blackmore was good in Tour des Alpes-Maritimes. Actually, Riley Sheehan has been looking pretty strong as well. He was climbing quite well in that race as well. And Jake Stewart was good. Obviously, he's a podium finisher in this race back in 2021. He's been looking pretty strong as well too in the Tour de la Provence. Maybe even Rick Ploymers from Tudor Pro Cycling, the man who won the Muscat Classic a few weeks ago. He could certainly be one. And one last name from me would be Fred Wright, actually. He was looking to me climbing and just looking in really good form in the Tour de la Provence. And I think he's certainly one to be looking out for as well.
I mean, now we come to our favorite part of the show, which is the predictions. And I mean, Patrick, I've got a stat here for you. I'll try and give more stats in our prediction rounds about the races. This one's quite interesting. You mentioned Paul Magnier, who's currently 20 years old. I don't think he would be the youngest winner if he wins. But if he did win, he would be a French rider to break a hold that the Belgians have on the youngest winners. 19 out of the 20 youngest riders of this race have been from Belgium. So if you're a young rider, you have to be from Belgium to win this race.
Oh, no.
And oldest rider was 37 years old, 139 days. And that was, of course, the legend, the Lion of Flanders, Johan Museo. But that out of the way, Patrick, who's your top three for 2025? And you did get the winner correct last year, and let's just add that in as well.
I did, so I'm feeling a lot of pressure here to try and get this right. I'm trying to think about what kind of race scenario is gonna form. Is it going to be an attritional race? Is it going to be a sprinting race? How many teams want it to be a sprint? How many teams want to be aggressive? Is it going to come back for a sprint? I think I'm going to go with a bit more of an aggressive style of race going on. So I'm going to go with third place will be Morgado. I think second place will be Ben Turner. Maybe that's just a bit home bias. And I think that in first place will be Tim Vellens.
Fair enough. Okay, my podium is weird as always. Third place, Jasper Philipsen wins the sprint. Second place, Antonio Morgado. And for whatever reason, this might be the bias of just having done all those Tom Pidcock videos. He is the winner. And it would be quite funny if he only does one cobble race and wins it.
Oh my word, that's a recency bias coming out right there.
Yeah, oops.
That's like Victor Campenaerts winning the most combative rider in the Tour. Still sore about that.
Yeah, that was quite bad. Justice for Campenaerts. Well, justice for Campenaerts and not. Oh wait, Carapaz won it in the end, no?
No, Campenaerts won it.
Oh, oops.
Because he attacked in like 2 stages in the final week. Sorry, that's
a bonus round. Last round was where would Rasmus Seibert finish in the UAE Tour GC. We got it both wrong. He finished 86th. He was, of course, working for the riders. So our bonus round this week, it'll be where will friend of the channel and one of your favorite riders, Tom Schoinge, finish in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad 2025. And he's just had a kid, so congrats.
That's true. Sleepless nights. I will go with...
He's finished 55th. Oh my god, what is this 55 thing?
I will say 38th.
Yeah, I don't think this is a race he cares about, if I'm honest. So I'm going to say 62nd.
Okay, yeah. I think after last season, he's got bigger fish to fry. I think he's...
Yeah, this is not...
He's got to be looking at Flanders.
This is not on the list.
Yeah. Omloop is small fry here.
Anyways, that's basically it for us of the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Of course, we also have the podcast version if you'd rather listen to us. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. That really helps. And comment down below who you think is going to win and do it before the race, please. I know some of you do it after the race. And of course, check out Patrick's own channel, I'll Do Cycling. That'll be in the link down below. Final thing, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.